Okay, welcome back to another episode of Fire, Flour, and Fur. And we are going back to the Who Done It Better. We have the
Betty Crocker
and the Better Homes and Gardens versions, the two different recipes. Now, the funny thing about these recipes is they're really not that different. We're going to be making brownies.
The biggest thing that's different is the shortening. The rest is the same.
Yeah, pretty much the same. So in the Better Homes and Gardens book, there's actually two different recipes for brownies, and they're both pretty much the same, other than just a couple of differences here and there. And because we are what we are, we're going to add a couple little twists on this too. I'm adding a couple of secret ingredients to mine to kind of pep it up a little bit. And if you watched our last one, my wife and I decided we were going to change things up with the vanilla. So instead of a teaspoon, we went with a tablespoon. She went with Mexican, I went with bourbon. This time we're doing it the other way. She's doing bourbon, I'm doing Mexican, because I'm adding just a hint of cinnamon and a hint of chili powder to mine to see if I can bump them up a little bit. But we'll see if that goes anywhere.
And I'm using bourbon vanilla this time, and I am adding a tiny bit of espresso powder to my chocolate because it enhances the chocolate. And I wasn't sure that the Mexican would pair very well with it. The other thing that we're doing different, the Better Homes and Gardens book actually calls for walnuts. Mine just says nuts, so I'm using pecan in mine.
Yeah, and this one, it actually says broken walnuts, so we just
hammered the crap out of it.
Just hammered some out to get them in there, because, I don't know, I'm not a big fan of big chunks of nuts in foods, but
I'm not a fan of nuts, period, but whatever.
Anyway, okay.
If Betty Crocker says nuts, you put nuts in.
You put nuts in. And same thing with this one. All right. Last time, because we also have this other little thing, is that we only have the one KitchenAid. Last time we did rock, paper, scissors, decide who got to use the KitchenAid and who got to use the hand mixer. This time we're going to do a little different. We're actually going to draw a high card. So,
high card wins?
High card wins. And it's one draw. It's not 2 out of 3.
Oh, come on.
No, it's the high card wins.
Okay.
So
brand new deck of cards. He shuffled. I watched him shuffle several times and spread them out. I'm picking this one right in the middle. Oh, crappers.
This one right here. Ooh. Look at that.
Oh, okay, he barely won.
Story of my life. Of course, I never win anything, so actually that's quite a victory
so
for
Bert
me.
gets the KitchenAid today. Now, I have already... This is the interesting thing about old recipes. This calls for unbaked brick chocolate. Now, when he and I grew up, this was commonplace in our house. Anyway, this was commonplace at our house. My mom always had this unsweetened chocolate. She also had the green box, which was the German chocolate, because my dad loved German chocolate cake. I remember a couple of times, and we were talking about it, and Bert remembers the same thing, sneaking into the pantry and breaking off a little cube of it to sneak. And it was a lovely surprise when you bit into it, and it was disgusting. Like, as a kid, you didn't know how this turned into something really good.
Yeah.
But what you're supposed to do is take, Crisco and your bricked chocolate and put it over a double boiler. So I have already set the stove to 350 degrees. I have put 2 pans over the stove to start to boil. And we are going to dump this stuff into... I'm going to put mine into my pan that I'm going to mix with. He'll put his into his pan, and you melt these together. Now, I have put... Oh, thank you. I have put my espresso in with my chocolate and my Crisco, so it will blend in with the chocolate.
So this one basically says the same thing. It just says melt chocolate and shortening together over very low heat, stirring constantly. Now, I kind of also, since it doesn't actually say double boiler, I'm also guessing that at the time you weren't doing it this way. You were basically just, like it says, very low heat.
Little Phoebe, our little girl, is helping in the kitchen again. So when we're stepping over weird things that looks odd, that's what's going on. Yeah. She's chasing flies currently.
Yeah.
Me being a modern cook and a little bit lazy, I really wanted to just put this in the microwave, but this unsweetened chocolate, because there's no fat in the chocolate, it wouldn't have melted well at all.
Basically turn into a weird paste.
Yeah.
Melting nice.
Oh. Birds is melting nicely.
Stir yours.
Well, I'm also tripping over feeds, and she always ends up right under my feet. Always just right under it. Always. Sometimes Festus joins in, but for the most part, it's Phoebe that helps with dinner.
This would spit out. You do this right?
Good. So if you can see, I don't know if you can see from here, but all we're doing is then melting down the Crisco, and the chocolate's melting, and so it will become this beautiful chocolatey
Mess.
wet batter. It's a really wet batter.
Yeah. It's basically thick hot chocolate is the best way to do it.
Oh yeah, that's a good.
That's the way it looks.
Mm-hmm.
I need to see what my next step is. Or stir this for me, would you? Hold my spitter.
Yeah, I didn't think about that either. If we'd broken the chocolates and we basically just put a big chunk or a bar in, and if we'd broken them up into individual pieces, it probably would have gone a bit quicker.
Marta and I have talked about, like she said, when we were younger, I remember my mom buying this unsweetened chocolate, this baker's chocolate that came basically wrapped in what looked like parchment or butcher paper. It was just these little, they were like half ounce or quarter ounce square, or I guess they probably would have been 1 ounce squares. And they were just hard as a rock.
Yeah. Because again, there's no fat in it.
It almost looked like somebody made it in their garage. You get this box that just had this brown chunks.
The super secret chocolate, babe.
They were squares, but it was just funny that it just looked like, oh wow, that turned out good. It just looked like it.
That's interesting. Ours just melted at the exact same moment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my water's off.
Hands off. I imagine you got to do this fairly quickly.
All right, so we have melted our chocolate. Now it says beat in 1 cup of sugar and then eggs. Now, do not put your eggs in now. You've got to put your sugar in first, because you've got hot chocolate here, hot cornstarch and cornstarch. Wow, Crisco and chocolate. And if you put eggs in right now, you're going to end up with a beautiful scramble. Nobody wants that.
And this one, mine says beat eggs until fluffy, and since I'm using this for my chocolate.
Interesting. Mine just says add eggs after adding my sugar.
Okay, beat eggs till light. Sorry, not light. 2 eggs in this one. I can't crack an egg to save my life.
Baby, all you see is your back.
I can't crack eggs to save my life, so.
And I think I've mentioned this multiple times, but I'm going to repeat it every single freaking time. Scrape your bowl. It is hugely important to scrape your bowl. I'm going to get this and put this back over here because I don't want chocolate all over my house. I know. I'm a horrible person, but I don't.
Till I stir in sugar, then chocolate mixture. So I need to stir in the sugar before I put it in the chocolate mixture in this bowl. Sugar. So the way I'm doing this, scrape the bowl, even though I'm doing it this way, so I want to scrape it. So I put granulated sugar in there.
Alright, mine doesn't say so, but I'm going to crack 1 egg at a time. Just to be
I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see what the hell I'm doing here. Ah, much better.
Thank you,
Okay.
Aziz.
Thank you, Aziz. and chocolate mixture and stir in sugar, then chocolate mixture and vanilla. So the way I'm going to have to do this is this. Pour all this in.
1 egg at a time for me, just because Ooh.
Where's the paddle? What'd you do with it? I got it.
I will say I'm not sabotaging you. I will say this.
I don't know where the
I
paddle is,
don't know where the paddle is. Hey, you're supposed to be responsible for your own crap.
That's all right. And vanilla. Mexican vanilla.
Now I want my batter to be nicely whipped, but I do not want to over whip it because I don't want it to get.
Well, that's what I'm looking at here too. This is mixing up really nice.
It really is, but if you go overboard, it's just going to make everything tough. Now, guys, remember when I said always scrape your bowl? You see how I'm getting a ripple or a revel effect? It's because the outside's not getting mixed in with the eggs, and so I would get an inconsistent.
So I'm going to call that good on mine because
Mine's look at the batter.
Smooth that is already. It's just.
Ooh, see, yours is pretty. Mine's not.
Okay. So mine says add the sifted dry ingredients.
Mine's probably going to be a little more rustic. We'll call it rustic.
Once again, the only real difference between what I'm doing here and what the recipe calls for, I added just a cup of chili powder and just a little bit of cinnamon because that goes, I'm thinking, kind of the abuelita stuff, the Mexican vanilla, just a touch of cinnamon, hopefully, is going to add to that. Just a little bit.
Always scrape your bowl.
So that's one reason why you don't want to add everything real fast because now I got a big dust cloud for Marta to clean up later.
What?
And I really want to scrape the bowl in this one because I did pour that flour in probably a little too fast. And it got all around the sides of the bowl. And there's a lot of that, you see.
Alright.
That's pretty bad.
My batter is beautiful too, but it is definitely thick. So I can already tell you that these brownies are going to be, they're not going to be a cakey brownie. They are going to be one of those deep, thick, rusted, bite into it, really enjoy it kind of brownies. And I'm fairly certain that this is in fact the recipe that my mother always used for brownies.
So I am calling that good on that. And the last thing it says is to add nuts. That batter looks like you can see that.
Yeah, yours is pretty.
Yeah, really good. Nuts. Now, also on this recipe, the recipe called for, let's see, 1 cup of walnuts. I only went with 3/4 of a cup because I just don't want that to be the taste when I bite into it. And then we've got one more good scrape.
Pecans. Half a cup, probably, because I don't really like nuts.
How much did it call for? Did it call for half a cup?
Mine called for half cup.
Okay, see, there's really not a lot of batter here. I'm really hoping this one might actually turn out a little more cakey than hers, just because I can see it looks like she's got more in her bowl than I do. So they're probably expecting this one to raise a little bit more, and that might be
the
difference in the
judging. It'll be interesting to see how, number one, how they come out, and number two, how, like everybody has a different preference. So the last time we did this,
that was interesting.
we had one of the judges talked about how they actually liked the crumble cake.
Oh my goodness!
Right?
Wow. Now, just for shits and giggles, taste that and see what that cinnamon nut cayenne did to that.
And I want you to taste mine too.
Did that. It's real subtle, isn't it?
Yeah. Which,
Interesting to see what happens when it bakes.
like when you add spice to something like a brownie that people are used to, you don't want to shock the hell out of them. Try mine.
Next to yours is definitely more dense.
Right?
That coffee did it. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Oh, chocolate everywhere for Daddy to clean up.
It's all right. She's already got to scrape this thing off. I've got a big old gob right there on the.
Eject. All right. This recipe calls for us to grease the bowl.
Yeah, so we get to grease it.
And I'm telling you, I was so lucky when I was little to be the one that got to grease the bowl. The trade-off with my mother was always, if you grease the bowl, you can lick the pan.
It's a very interesting looking batter there. Very dense and thick. Beautiful. I really like to turn it out. Okay, so
Here, babe.
now comes the fun part. Now comes the fun part. We get to dig into the ball of Crisco here.
Now, mind you, again, my mother was very frugal. So wasting a paper towel on greasing
This is a no-no.
didn't happen. That's what your fingers were for.
Yeah, that or the old rag. I still
Ew,
think.
no, we never did that.
Seems like Mom had a sharpening rag that she.
That she kept
She
just
kept
for that
just that.
purpose.
Mhm.
Yeah, no. Mm-mm. No, fingers. That's what your fingers are for, Marta. Thanks, Mom.
Oh, I'm like. I hope that's greased enough because last time it was a disaster, but it wasn't. Put a little bit more in the
Okay, truth be told, Bert and I talked about this after the last challenge, and my pineapple upside down cake took a little bit longer to cook, so we waited and dumped ours out together, and I really think that's why you're stuck.
I think so too. Well, and it was slightly overdone. I mean, like I say, I think that dark brown sugar kind of played hell with that, but it should have been light brown sugar. There was a lot more of the dark than there should have been.
Now, mind you, because I continually scraped my bowl, when you get down to the bottom, you're not seeing dark brown streaks
You don't
of
see the
stuff.
streaks and everything.
And you're not
so-
seeing streaks in here. So, I mean, really, I get pretty obsessive. But that's what, I mean, when I've told my students the same thing too. When I repeat something over and over or tell you it multiple times, it's because I've screwed up myself a lot. So, scrape your bowl.
Yeah, let's get that. Everybody can see what you're doing there, Ben.
Now, in my recipe book, it doesn't actually have you put frosting on the brownies. It does have a recipe for them. Bert's book does not. So what I've decided is that I am going to mix up the recipe that's in this book and use it for both sets of brownies, and we're going to put it on half. So from the same pot of frosting, I will put half of my brownies with frosting and he'll put half of his, because then when the judges come, because brownies are an interesting thing. Some people want frosting on them and some people don't, so then they will have the option.
Okay, just like everything else, I'm going to stop there because I usually end up overworking everything.
See, and I like the rustic kind of look.
See, and I've
Now
got,
this is interesting because see my spatula? The batter is thick enough that when you push on your brownie, it's lifting off the...
see, same thing. So that's interesting that they did that. Huh, fascinating. All right, you ready?
Okay. So the oven is preheated at 350. And they're supposed to cook for, did we decide 30 to 35?
It says 30 to 35.
On both recipes, so it's the exact same cook time and the exact same temperature. So here we go.
We will see you in a few minutes. Good job, Bev.
I'm going to start with 30.
Okay.
Okay.
Good team.
Now, so the house smells divine. We pulled the brownies out at exactly the same time this time, which was interesting. So it said 30 to 35 minutes. The description, you weren't supposed to stick a stick in it. It was supposed to have, what did it say? Like
An indent or something.
a light crust on top, and then if you touched it with your finger, there would be a little bit of an indent. And he and I pulled them out at the exact same time. They've been sitting on the counter cooling, on the stove cooling, and we took our dogs for a quick run because they were crazy today. And we've come home. I mixed up one batch of frosting. The recipe didn't call for frosting. It gave you an option of frosting, so I mixed up one batch of frosting and we put it on half of the brownies. The frosting was an old-fashioned frosting, so it was again the double boiler. You put the unsweetened chocolate bar in, butter, a little bit of hot water, which I thought was interesting. We mixed it up. It was mixing up weird. And so I ended up putting in some evaporated milk, just a little bit of evaporated milk, and then chocolate. Sorry, not chocolate. I'd already done chocolate. Wow. Confectioner sugar and mixed it up. So this is just a thin, kind of a more of a glazed frosting than a thick frosting. And then this is what we ended up with.
So, you can see there is, they turned out pretty much the same. Mine has more of a sheen on the brownie part of it. Mm-hmm. Hers is a little darker. But if you look at the cut, you look at the sides there.
His has got a little bit more of an indent. Both of them, it was interesting because as they cooked, they rose quite high, and then Bert's like, "Yep, I'll bet they flattened back out," and which they did, because this is more of a.
It's a chewy,
yeah,
not a cake
it's more
thing.
it's less of a cake brownie than a chewy brownie. The outside
you can see
is a little bit crispy, which is why we decided to go ahead and pull them. I don't like a hard outside.
that's the best part of a brownie is that hard point in the corner. Oh, yes, it is.
See, that's why we make a good pair, because I can eat the inside and you can eat the outside. Anyway, we went ahead and just did half, because then when the judges come, they can decide, or they can taste it both ways.
So
But
if you look at them kind of side by side, you can see the difference in the color. Now, the texture, to touch it, hers is a little bit harder on the top. Mine's got this thing on the indent, so
Yep.
I'm guessing.
mine might be a little bit more cakey.
Yeah, but I kind of doubt it, because if you look at the way the cook was on them, they're almost identical. If you look at that from there, hers is a little darker.
But that also might be the espresso that did
Oh,
that.
that's right. I forgot about
I don't
that
know.
because she put the espresso in there. So
All I know is the whole house smells like chocolate. And it's weird how when you use the original, like that unbaked baker's chocolate, it's different. It's different.
So it's a richer smell.
Maybe.
It's not the super sweet, Hershey bar smell that you get sometimes with some chocolate. It's I don't know. It's hard to explain.
Anyway.
And it's funny because once again, because we grew up with this kind of stuff being made,
Right.
it takes you back to that smell. Of course, back then the older homes we lived in was a lot mustier, so you got the must with the chocolate. So there's that too.
Yeah, didn't
Anyway,
think about
we're
that.
gonna call our friends over here in a little while. We're
Sooner
no
than
hurry on this
later,
one.
hopefully, because they're still slightly warm, which is the best time to eat brownies, in my opinion. But anyway, so we'll see what they have to say.
Anyway, all right. So we'll see you when they come in. Do you want to explain things since now this is a bit?
Oh, you're difficult. Go ahead.
No.
No,
You did a good job. Just repeat what you said.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, we had the two pretty much identical recipes out of the two cookbooks, the Better Homes and Gardens and the Betty Crocker. The only difference is one of them had more shortening, and one asked for a certain type of nut. The other one just said nuts. So that's the difference there. Because they were so identical, we threw kind of our own little spin on things on this one. So you'll have to see if you can pick that out.
And then the frosting was optional. Like they
Yeah.
gave a recipe, so it's the exact same frosting. I just did half and half.
So if you want one with frosting or not, or both, it doesn't matter. But we decided we'd try it that way. And if you look at the cook on that,
they came out at exactly the same
they
time.
came out at exactly the same time.
So,
And they're pretty much identical on the cook.
so
Which was actually kind of surprising.
So, anyway, okay, Rod,
Perfect.
you're an edge guy.
Yep.
I don't care.
Do you want to?
We are pretty not very. And are you frosting or no frosting?
Me?
Yeah, you're gonna do
I'm gonna do, if this is okay,
We don't care.
right in that
I'm
middle.
gonna
How
do.
about
Down
you?
with that
Are you
too.
frosting?
Just do
You wanna
the
do
same
thing?
split, yeah.
Don, are you
Do
frosting
that.
or no
A little bit
frosting?
of both.
I was thinking the
Yeah.
same thing,
Little split.
that mine closer to the middle and yours is the edge. And Autumn can be closer to the middle too, I think. Don't you
I
like
like
it?
more in the middle.
What is it with you people not liking the edge?
I
am
do
not an
like.
edge
Oh.
person.
You know what? I actually like the edge like the next day. That sounds really good. But
I
it
I
kind
get
of
it. No, I get it. That makes perfect sense. It honestly
I
does.
read a meme where somebody said, the guy inventing the crouton, eating a salad, said, how can I make this hurt?
how I feel about Captain Crunch too.
So to me, that's
You know,
the edges.
Back in the day, Captain Crunch was not that bad. It's until they put the damn crunch berries in.
Berries around it.
That just ruined it all.
You just took my finger.
No, no, I've got,
You have one of each or what?
keeping one,
You're keeping the split.
He's being very,
I wanna make sure I don't get confused here.
Yeah, because they are. I had thought maybe I could have sprinkled or something.
Still fork bottom. Thank you.
And then I need you to. Thank you.
Do you want, I am not that hungry, so
That one.
this one.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm gonna get a half and half there too.
As well.
Must be your child. Okay, so once again, if you look at the
Okay,
way
we
these
have to go with
cook,
this.
they look pretty close.
Yeah, I was surprised because the batter actually mixed up different looking,
They did.
and then they cooked a lot.
I like the frosting.
I was just
So
saying,
you know.
frosting's really good.
Frosting's really good.
That's just a basic.
Which is
so
funny.
just a very. It's not a buttercream frosting. It's just a
It calls
basic.
for those old-fashioned, unsweetened chocolate squares that you have to melt out. So it's crazy how much more.
That every kid tries to eat when they're little. And
Yeah, and then
That's
we get
funny
that.
because we
Mine's
do
up.
that too. You sneak into the pantry and take a bite and go.
Yeah, this isn't a Hershey.
That's what happens when you sneak food from your mom. It's disgusting.
Did you see that meme where that kid takes a big
I wouldn't
spoonful
have
of
snuck
Hershey
chocolate as a
cocoa
child.
powder,
Oh no.
and he's so happy, and then he realizes what it is,
And he just
and
goes-
he just kind of he does this cough, and all the dust just he's just looking at the can.
It's like the cinnamon challenge. Have you heard that one?
Yeah,
Everyone just chokes on it.
I remember one time I went out to the freezer to get something and opened up the lid of a Cool Whip thing and licked it, and it ended up with it like in an eyebrow or something. My mom's like,
What are
"Did you get something out of the freezer?" No.
No,
yeah,
no.
it's not your mother.
Yeah, I want you to think about this. Think about your answer. Are you sure you didn't get something out of the freezer?
Guys, this is hard.
This is really.
They're pretty
Well,
close
is
to the
there?
same.
We haven't tried them yet, so we don't know. So can you? Is there a significant enough difference in them?
This one to me feels almost more fudge-like, fudge brownie-like, tiny bit.
And which one was that one?
That one's the left one.
This one?
Oh, yeah, mine one. A little bit. I'm the worst for tasting different things though. Like, I'm not good at that.
McKay probably would have been better.
Nick
He
Hay
was out
was
of town.
probably better. Sorry.
Because his dad's a baker.
He's out of town.
Oh yeah.
Issue here.
I am.
He's really
I
just
think-
thinking.
I'm like,
They haven't written a single thing, and last time they were.
I know.
I told you
Like,
I'm the worst for this part.
Well, this is.
Well, they're so
The
identical.
last
Yeah.
one was very. They were
split these
different.
up at all?
They were
Last
different?
one's different.
Me?
No, her. When you did the cards, how do we know which one's which?
Oh, they have them. I just.
It doesn't
I
matter.
just
We don't
eat
need
it
to
off
know
as
who.
left
We're gonna say
and
Oh, I
right.
see what you mean.
north and south.
Oh man, don't.
I did left
What?
and right.
Left and right.
Because if you're standing over there, you'll know that that's the north side, and you'll
When I
know
give
that
her-
that's the south
So I
side.
give her directions.
Yeah.
What do you think, frosting or no frosting? I like the frosting personally.
Yeah.
I'm actually
I'm a
surprised
frosting
because
I'm not
person.
my-
You're not
well,
a
I'm
frosting
not.
person.
I'm really truthfully not a chocolate person.
Oh.
But
See,
like,
this would have been a bad challenge for you.
but I mean, I like it. It's just not usually my.
Go to.
Yeah, I don't know. As I've actually become like an adult and stuff, I like it more as an adult than I did as a kid. Like as a kid, I would not even eat like candy chocolate bars or anything, but I like them more as an adult. So that's chocolate frosting is not usually something that I have on anything, but I actually really like this one.
It's a good frosting.
It is a really
Yeah,
good.
it's really good.
Make y'all do your
'Cause it's
own
not
addition
so,
this time,
like-
too. Some ice cream mix
I
that.
love milk chocolate. So like
Yeah.
that, it's like
And it's not like
it's not
that
so.
super thick
Mhm.
frosty either. It's more just a thin glaze. That was a tough one, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, it is real hard still.
I
Really.
think that one has a little more salt. Tiny bit. Can you not tell yet?
No, I can tell you whatever, but no. Honestly, the recipe, the only difference in the two is the amount of shortening.
Well, other than
So then
couple
he
of
put a
things
little
we threw in.
thing and then I put a little, yeah. So.
Okay, it's too bad that Kay's not here to check my arithmetic. here.
So Rod and I were the opposite.
Really?
Yeah. So
That's
we're
funny.
sitting tied.
Oh,
It all
see,
comes
you
I
down
don't
to
know
you.
that.
I don't know though. I don't even know what.
No pressure.
No
No
pressure.
pressure.
Mm.
It's alright.
What if I tie them all up though?
We're only either throwing you out of the
See,
house or I will.
We were the opposite last time too.
Oh,
That's
that's
true.
right. That's right.
But that's how we can eat a pan of brownies.
Oh.
He eats
He's the outside, you eat the
corners.
middle.
I
Yeah,
eat
if you
the
just
inside.
stop right there,
That was perfect. for
all the
you.
way around,
Really? That's funny.
but we
That's
need
great.
icing on it.
I have a friend that won't eat edges of anything. So like she'll eat the inside of the pancake,
I
but
think
she
I
won't
have
eat
to
the
go
outside of
with
it.
the left.
Really?
Like
Oh, that's
everything.
interesting.
It's weird. Oh, I won that one?
You did. If this is yours.
That one's mine.
Okay. All right, so.
So was this one on top, or were they side by
They were
side, or was
side by
this
side.
this one in the back? Is
Nope,
it convectional?
They were side by side.
No,
I
it is,
didn't
but we
turn
didn't
the
cook it. We
convection
just
on.
we put them side by side on the
Side
same
by
rack.
side.
What side of the?
The right.
So it's hotter on the right. You think?
I don't know.
I mean,
Why do you
just
feel like that?
Well, no,
So
well, it's just.
So is the
Or
edge,
what else?
Is the edge more cooked on this one then?
But one has more shortening in it than the
No,
other.
that's-
Yeah,
So that's
this one has
gonna-
more shortening.
Yeah.
Which
Now
is
the
probably why
difference,
I
well,
like it.
and
more.
also because we
Because it
only
was
have
more
the
of
one
the
mixer,
fudgy
one of us
kind
gets
of
to use
cakey.
that, and the other one has to use a hand mixer. And on this one, I actually got to use the KitchenAid. This is mine, and I would actually prefer to use the hand mixer.
Yeah.
Well, then fine. We'll just do that from now.
No, well, it's still a handicap. Now, second to that is she put.
I put a little bit of espresso
Yeah.
This one.
with my chocolate.
Oh, and this
This
one.
one.
I was
Sorry.
gonna say I thought it was this one.
In the chocolate or the icing?
That's probably why I
Oh.
like
The
it.
icing is
Okay, so that'd
exactly
be
the
why
same.
That's probably why I like it so much. I like.
Now,
'Cause
so I
it's
tried
what-
to go the opposite direction, and I actually put chili powder and cinnamon.
I thought I could taste cinnamon.
So and this is Mexican
But I
vanilla
thought
and
it
that's bourbon vanilla.
They're both really good.
Yeah.
I haven't tried them yet, so I don't know.
Well, enjoy
How about
and indulge.
Well, we will. We will.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it looks like we have 26 and 15 is 41, right?
I feel like I'm rolling out.
12 is 38.
Don't ask
So
me.
yeah, that was a you. No, just stop.
At least we don't knock it down.
Oh, we forgot to bring the trophy out too. We have a
Was
trophy.
that the is that the Better Homes one again then, or was that the
that's
Betty
Betty
Crocker?
Betty Crocker. So you haven't seen them. Look, these are the old ones.
Aw,
So these are the originals, right?
that's so cool.
Yeah,
Originals, and then
yeah. So
Remix.
if you look at that one up there, you can
Reprints.
see the spines missing, and if you try to pull
Oh,
that
yeah.
down, it just goes.
Just wants to puff
Yeah.
away.
so they're old. How old
So
was it?
cool, though.
The Betty Crocker one was written in 1950, and the Better Homes was in 1953.
That
That's so
tortilla
funny.
maker.
Now that you say that
That
espresso, I
came from my
totally
dad.
just taste that, not bite it.
He got that on
Totally.
his
Okay, well, so that was actually a really good challenge. I'm not quite sure what we're going to do next. But of course, the difference, like I said, the difference being in this one had just a touch of cayenne and a touch of cinnamon in it. I would have put more cinnamon in it because that's the other thing we did this time is we also put 3 times the amount of vanilla. Well, it's a teaspoon of
I'm a
vanilla
vanilla
versus
whore.
a tablespoon.
Just like
So-
Nothing wrong with more than
We
that.
like
No,
vanilla too.
so we upped that, and then she put the espresso in hers. But other than that, the recipe was pretty much
It was.
just right out of the book.
Over the double boiler and everything.
Yep. So, okay.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Thank our neighbors again for being here.
We're gonna give them a special treat.
We got some treats out in the freezer, and
Ooh.
so
Oh, yeah.
that's it. For
I thought this was the treat because this is
Yeah.
Oh, we got that.
actually really good. The edges were
We
really
do a
good.
double lockdown.
Double
Oh,
lockdown.
yeah.
We got the dog. Okay, that's another episode of Fire, Flower, and Water. Thank you all, and we'll see you again next time.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.
Wonderful.